So I got way too hyperfixated and had to break what was supposed to be a 15-minute video into two different parts that are at least around 20 minutes apiece. With 2010 done, let's look at the build up to the 2026 World Cup. Mexico's path was easy as they got automatic qualification for being one of the three host countries. South Africa, on the other hand, had to earn their spot. The way they could get direct qualification is by winning the qualifying group or finishing as one of the four best second place teams to then be put in the CAF playoffs for a shot at the Interconfederation playoffs. They were put in a group with Benin, Nigeria, Rwanda, Lesotho, and Zimbabwe. And honestly, they were comfortably in the pole position, being 5 points ahead of second place Benin with 3 matches to go. But then something that wouldn't be out of place in a TV show happened. During a match against Lesotho in March 2025, South Africa fielded an eligible player, Ntebo Mokoena. He played despite being suspended for a game due to yellow card accumulation. 6 months later, a FIFA discipline committee ruled that the Bafana had breached rules and a 2-0 win was turned into a 3-0 loss via forfeit. So because of this and the South Africa draw with Nigeria the game before, going into the last match days, Benin would be first place because of goal difference. Nigeria and Rwanda were both alive, being 3 points behind the leaders. On match day 9, Benin would beat Rwanda, knocking Rwanda out of the direct qualification path. Nigeria would beat Lesotho 2-1, ending any hopes Lesotho had of qualifying for the playoff. And Zimbabwe, last place in the group with no hope of making the World Cup, were able to hold a 0-0 draw with South Africa, eliminating Rwanda from playoff contention and giving us cinema. This was the table going into the last match day, and god damn, isn't it beautiful? 3 teams with everything to play for and 1 game to earn their right to play in the World Cup. South Africa went into their final match against Rwanda, needing help from third place to Nigeria to even have a chance of qualifying, as they hosted Benin in their final match. Anyway, to sum it up, South Africa needs to win by at least 2, and for Benin to drop points. Nigeria also needs to win by at least 2, and for South Africa to either lose or draw. But Benin are in control of their own destiny, as they are in with a win no matter what. Or if they get a draw and South Africa also drops points. As you may know, the final match day for any federation qualifying format must be played concurrently to make sure everyone are playing on a level field and to enhance drama. Both games kick off on the 14th of October at the same time. 2 minutes and 16 seconds in for the Nigeria game, a great through ball finds Victor Osimhen, who opens up scoring, putting the Super Eagles in the driver's seat. For 2 whole minutes, as Thalente Batha, defensive midfielder for the Orlando Pirates, scores a freaking banger from outside the box. That was the end of the drama for South Africa, as they went on to score 2 more goals, the second one being a banger to clinch the World Cup spot. But as I'm not going to do a CAF qualifying video, let me tell you what happened with Nigeria, as they still need to win by 4 to get the final playoff spot. Victor Osimhen would score goals in the 37th and 51st minutes, and they had about 40-45 minutes to get the last goal. Now, cinema tends to happen when you have moments like this. In the 90th minute, Frank Onyeka scores a banger to send Nigeria in the playoff. And wow, I did not expect to go this in depth about CAF qualifying, but this is peak, okay? Let's talk about the manager and some key players for South Africa. I'd be lying if I said prior to this video I've seen any footage from a South Africa match, after the 2010 World Cup at least. So I'm doing this on a brief rundown based on some articles and quick research I did. Leading South Africa as their manager is Hugo Broos, who has been in charge of the Bafana since 2021, leading them to an African Cup of Nations bronze medal in 2023. The 74-year-old has been in charge of South Africa for 55 games, leading them to a record of 28 games, 17 draws, and 10 losses. From what I read, Burnley striker Lyle Foster is one to watch, having a record of 2 goals and 2 assists in the 2025 AFCON campaign. There's also Mumbogzaki, center back for the Chicago Fire, who Bruce feels like is wasting his time in the United States and should be playing in Europe. Going into the World Cup, South Africa has played 5 matches in 2026, with a record of 1 win, 2 draws, and 2 losses. Their last game before the Mexico match was a 1-0 win against Jamaica on June 6. Let's talk about Mexico, their roster, and the drama around everything, because you can't have Mexican soccer without novella levels of drama. After an embarrassing 2024 Copa America group stage exit, Mexico found itself in crisis again. Jaime Lozano was fired by the Mexican Federation, who decided, you know what? It's 2 years from the World Cup. There's no qualifying drama. Fuck it! Let's run it back with El Vasco one more time to make this horrendous duology into a trilogy. I already went into 2002 and how it ended in an embarrassing fashion. I talked about the 2010 qualifying and the squad selection and how they did against South Africa. But how did the rest of the World Cup end for Mexico? Well, they did go on to beat France 2-0 in a match I will go more in depth about in a later video. They lost 1-0 to Uruguay to close out group play, leading them to finish second and have a date with Argentina in the round of 16. And well, let me just say, it did not end the best for Mexico. An uncaught offside, Ricardo Osorio mistake, and a bangle for Tevez leads to Argentina beating Mexico 3-1. Thankfully, Chicharito did get a banger back, but that's about it. However, as I already said, there was an uncaught offside, so the drama was already there. But let me just play the clip from a press conference leading into this match.
Si México me da la sensación que no es favorito de nadie, que estamos abajo en las apuestas, que los favoritos son ellos y que no tenemos ninguna posibilidad. Vamos a verlo en 90 minutos, a ver si somos capaces de cambiar el curso de la historia. Hace 4 años.
Yes, Argentina had more talent than world-class players. And yes, they had more experience too because we had a young team starting. But it's the World Cup. If you're not going to fucking play for a win, what are you doing? Where is your desire? Where is your pride as a Mexican? How are you going to give up and say you have no chance against a team your successor after 2002, who coached the 2006 World Cup, went to war with? Sorry. Let me get back on track. Yeah, as I said, Mexico would go on to lose 3-0, where he spent most of the game with his head down, like he had completely given up. But I will give it to him. He did win the Nations League and the Gold Cup against the U.S., though admittedly weak U.S. team. And he turned around a team that was in shambles, because oh my god, they were horrible. Now let's talk about Mexico's squad and how while other national teams had already announced their squads with amazing videos, Mexico went the video game live service route, and they were giving us a drop-fed list that was officially announced on May 31st. These players were all from Liga MX, as the Mexican Federation and Liga MX owners came to an agreement that all Liga MX teams will release their players for that stupid long month training camp before Liguilla starts. This is where the drama starts. After the list was released, all players on said list were supposed to go on a week-long vacation and then report to the Centro de Alto Rendimiento, or CAR for short, in Mexico City on May 6th for the start of training camp. However, on May 5th, there were reports coming from Mexico that national teamers Alexis Vega and Jesus Gallardo were given an exception to play for their club, Toluca, in the CONCACAF Champions Cup semifinal against LAFC on May 6th. The issue is, even though the Mexican playoffs or Liguilla started the weekend prior on May 2nd, and Chivas, again, from the last video, were in the middle of a great season, they were short 5 players against Tigres because they all went to the training camp. They lost 3-1 in the first leg of their quarterfinal match against Tigres. Upon hearing the news that Toluca would be allowed to keep their players for at least one more game, Chivas owner Amari Vergara tweeted the following at midnight Guadalajara time. Agreements are valid only when respected by all parties. I instructed the sporting directors that our players would report tomorrow to the club's facilities. And just like that, shit hit the fan. The owner of one of the 2 most popular clubs in Mexico, who is supplying the most players to the Mexican national team, just told his players they were to show up to Chivas' Verde Valle facility on May 6th so they could prepare to help with the remontada against Tigres. Now, it may be because I'm a Chivas fan, but I do see where he's coming from. You're in the middle of a great season where you're a legitimate contender for your first league title in 9 years. And then you lose 5 players, key players to be exact, to a training camp where they don't do anything. Hell, it's not the first time this happened to Chivas since his father bought the team. But then you find out that the current back-to-back champions is given an exception for their 2 national teamers to play a tournament game while your team is on the verge of being eliminated? Hell, I'll be pissed too. The Mexican Federation released a statement at 8 a.m. Guadalajara time, The training camp is going on as planned, and any player not at the card in Mexico City at 8 p.m. will not go to the World Cup. Period. At 8:30 a.m., Chivas forward Armando La Hormiga Gonzalez and the other Chivas call-ups show up to the Chivas facilities. A few hours later, Chivas did release a statement stating, "At Chivas, we respect the wishes of our players to represent Mexico in the 2026 World Cup, and no way would there be a factor that cuts short that chance, which is why they will arrive to the camp on time and informed." At the end, everyone did end up reporting to the camp. Now let's talk about key players and players to watch for Mexico. Just like 2010, where Mexico's attack had a pair of promising 21-year-old talents in Gio and Vela, 2026 has a promising young talent that Mexico fans hope has a better career than both of them combined. 17-year-old Gilberto Mora. The Tijuana attacking midfielder is a special talent, and if it wasn't for a certain Spaniard, I'd say he'd be the favorite to win Young Player of the tournament. He made his professional debut for Tijuana in August of 2024, and provided an assist at the age of 15. Do you know how insane this is to do in Mexico, where many talented young players get stuck in a convoluted process that many managers say a player has to go through? How Mexico 24 and 25-year-olds are barely making their debuts and are called jóvenes promesas. In other leagues, they'd be well into their careers. In January of 2025, the Wonder Kid made his unofficial debut with El Tri in an unofficial friendly match against Brazilian side SC Internacional. He was 16, making him the youngest player to appear for the Mexican men's national team. He would go on to make Mexico's squad for the 2025 Gold Cup, where he would earn his first start in the quarters against Saudi Arabia. He officially making his debut for Mexico. And boy, you could tell he's special. In the semis, he assisted the lone goal in a victory against Honduras, and then he earned a start in the final against the US, which ended in Mexico lifting the 10th Gold Cup trophy. In the pre-World Cup friendly against Ghana, he even had a moment of magic where he almost scored a banger. He didn't, but almost. I'm not gonna lie, there have been an insane amount of Mexican wonder kids that have popped up over the years. But watching Mora play, it gives me a hope that I haven't had since I watched a young Gio and Vela. Then there is Chivas attacking midfielder Brian Gutierrez. The American-born player is in the middle of an amazing 2026. In January, after making a move to Guadalajara, Guti filed his one-time switch so he could play for the Tri after having 2 appearances for the US in unofficial friendlies. He also played for their various youth teams. And man, he is someone to watch. I think he earned a World Cup star after his friendly performances. This is someone we need to keep an eye on. He's been tearing it up. This is where the scriptwriters got lazy and reused the trope of taking 5 players from a very good Chivas team. Like 2010, one of these Chivas players is a young prolific phenom who is breaking club records in striker La Hormiga Gonzalez again. Man, he really brings me back to 14-year-old me, as he brings the same hype and joy that a young Chicharito would bring. Just like the 2010, the starting striker is expected to be an aging player from one of the smaller London Premier League sides in Raúl Jimenez. He is someone I'm conflicted on. Like, he's looked horrible in the friendlies. He hasn't scored in the World Cup and he's been to every one since 2014. But you can't put too much stock in friendlies, and he's been pretty decent in the build-up. But he's been a step slow and he's missing clear chances like he did against Serbia. Though he did score against Serbia, but yeah, the ball fell right at his feet, sure. He's entering the tournament with 46 goals, just 6 shy of equalizing Chicharito's record for the Tri. There is also an Argentine-born option at forward. In 2010, it was El Guille Franco. In 2026, it's someone I hope finds his form again in Santi Jimenez. Santi, he was born in Buenos Aires, but moved to Mexico at the age of 3 after his father, who also played for Mexico and is the Liga MX legend, El Chaco Jimenez, signed with Veracruz. From there on, he lived in Mexico for his whole life, and he was part of all the Mexican youth teams. So if you ask me, he's Mexican, but I'm also just a Mexican American, so who cares what I think? The AC Milan striker has been having a rough time, scoring only 7 goals since he transferred there in February of 2025. In fact, he hasn't scored a goal since September. Part of the reason is because he missed a good part of the season with an ankle injury, but in 15 appearances in Serie A, he has not been able to find the back of the net. For the Mexican national team, the drought's been about the same, as the last goal for it was in a September friendly against South Korea. And in the friendlies before the World Cup, he's looked out of form. Leading the back line is probably Mexico's best player at the moment, Genoa center back Joan Vazquez. The 27-year-old has been playing in Italy since 2021. And is honestly just a beast in the backline for Mexico. I mean, this man is captain for his club, was named the player of the year for Genoa, and honestly, in a period where Mexico was not performing well at all, he was someone you could rely on to put performance after performance. He, along with his partner in the back line, Cesar Montes, will have to be careful with the card accumulation and hope they don't get injured, as there are no other natural center backs on the roster. Instead, Vasco is planning on using midfielders Edson Alvarez and Luis Romo on that spot. While it does sound crazy due to some injuries and form drops, there are not many options for center back for Mexico, or at least they are World Cup quality. Do I like it? No, but I'm also not the manager. Many expect 26-year-old Chivas keeper Tata Rangel to be started for the World Cup, but knowing Vasco, there's a good chance that he starts 41-year-old Memo Ochoa. I can't have a Mexico World Cup video without mentioning the legend. Hell, in the days leading up to the start of the tournament, there have been conflicting reports on who the starter is going to be. There is some debate if Memo is the best keeper to suit up for El Tri since the great Jorge Campos. Some say there's better. But to many, you can't have a World Cup without Memo on the list, as he always shows up during the World Cup. Hell, for many non-Mexico fans, it feels like he just spawns out of nowhere every 4 years to aura farm the World Cup with his iconic moments. But this will be his last dance, as he announced that he will go to the 6th World Cup, but he is going to retire at the end of it. Now let's get into that controversial pick that you just know Vasco's going to have. In 2010, it was Bofo, and this time around, it was Pumas backup striker Guillermo El Memote Martinez. This choice caused lots of people to scratch their heads, as Memote is not the best striker. I mean, I'd rather take an out-of-form Santi Jimenez over him. Plus, with the three I had mentioned earlier, plus Julian Quiñones, who is the Saudi Pro League top scorer, and he could play striker, I don't see a reason why Memote should be on this list. But he does have 5 goals and 15 appearances, which isn't horrible. Plus, he scored a pretty nice goal against Ghana in the pre-World Cup friendly. He's also 6'3", and I guess Vasco is one of those girls that's like, oh my god, he's 6 feet tall. But when Vasco calling out 4 strikers plus Quiñones, you could argue that his spot could have gone to another center back or a right back like Richie Ledesma. I know I mentioned a lot of players, but there is one I want to talk about. And it's not because he was caught up, but instead how he was shockingly not caught up, even though he was part of the process the whole time. But instead of being mad like the whole Jonathan situation, many people are celebrating it. Charlie Rodriguez was not caught up to the World Cup. We were finally freed from the shackles of him, from having to watch him play and do absolutely nothing in a Mexico uniform. As a Chivas fan, I do wish we were not free of the shackles from Charlie just yet, though. Maybe he could have been like caught up to the training camp and then cut on the last day, make it hurt more. But god damn, I did not expect to go this in depth in this video. I did not expect that whole South Africa qualifying thing. But Mexico is set to host South Africa in the legendary Estadio Azteca. No, I'm not calling it Estadio Banorte. The opening match is on June 11th. I hope this video releases soon. This is recorded on June 9th. So I have 2 days to record and post it. I want to post this before the game on Thursday. But yeah, the game's on June 11th, 2026. 16 years to the date of the 2010 matchup, as I mentioned in the first video. Because, you know, this is a sequel. God, I'm tired of having to do that bit. Now, what do I think is going to happen? Well, I think Mexico wins 2-0. Yeah, Mexico has been playing well as of late. I think Mexico fans are very pessimistic for no reason, as we're our own biggest hater. And I also would like to point you to the biggest rule of Mexican soccer, as I mentioned in the first video. Mexico does not lose in the Azteca, period. Yes, I know it's not the fortress it once was, and many Mexico fans are rightfully annoyed with El Tri choosing to play a majority of their games in the US. Yeah, it gets annoying, man. I get annoyed having them playing here. Like, come on, go play in Mexico. Go play in Guadalajara, Monterrey, Puebla, something. Give your fans something. Fuck chasing the money, man. But I believe when that anthem hits and it starts to set in that this is it, the World Cup is here, that Mexico is gonna fucking kick ass.